Hello, everyone. My name is Isaac. I'm a senior at the University of Pennsylvania, and I'm going to be walking you through my poster from this research project that I worked on last year. This was for an undergraduate research project in the psychology department at the University of Pennsylvania, and it was advised by Professor Angela Duckworth and one of her PhD students, Danny Southwick, who is a former Arena League quarterback. So from a psychology perspective, we were interested in examining this social psychology concept called the fundamental attribution error. I'm going to refer to it as FAE from now on, in a real world context. So studies on FAE have only taken place in controlled lab settings. So we were trying to take this out into the real world, and sports was a very good vehicle for that. And then my background and love for football and Danny's background in football definitely aligned, and we were able to complete this project. And it was really great. So just to explain what FAE is, so it's the tendency to overestimate the impact of individual factors and to underestimate the impact of situational influences when you're evaluating someone else's behavior. So the example that I like to give is a politician. So imagine a politician signing a bill, or writing a bill, I should say. And are they writing that bill because it's what they truly believe? Or is it because they're under some sort of influence from their constituents? It's what they think their constituents will go for. So that's the environmental influence. So usually people in these controlled lab experiments have exhibited a tendency to overestimate how important these individual factors are, and they don't think so much about the environment. So applying this to football, we surveyed people on Amazon Mechanical Turk, which is an online survey platform, and basically asked them to rate the influence of individual performance factors for quarterbacks. So that would be, arm strength, athleticism, leadership, and to weight the influence of those on their success versus situational influences such as how good their receivers are, how good their offensive line is, how good their coaches are. So here are just some of the sample questions that we asked them. We use passer rating to operationalize success. I'll go more into that dependent measure in study 2. But first, we just asked them to rate the influence of each factor on quarterback success, and then to indicate whether they thought each one was individual or situational. And then finally, we just asked them straight up to attribute a percentage of success to both individual and situational influences. All right, and here are the results of study 1. So we did find that factors that they considered to be individual, as you can see in the graph, and factors they considered to be individual were weighted as more influential on passer rating than factors they considered to be situational. And how they evaluated whether these factors were individual or situational aligned with what we thought when we were creating this factor menu. I will say this menu was created not just randomly or arbitrarily. There was a initial variable nomination survey that we sent out on MTurk, and we just had a bunch of people just nominate a bunch of factors. And we just pulled some ones that we thought were good, basically. And then finally, in the last question, when they were asked to attribute just a percentage to individual ability versus situational influences, they attributed almost twice as much to individual ability. All right, and then on to study 2. So to actually prove that there is an error in these attributions of quarterback success, which have focused on the individual, as we've shown in study 1, we had to show that situational influences were in fact more predictive of success. So we had two predictor models. We had an individual model, which used college performance and NFL combine statistics to predict NFL passer rating in a quarterback's first 4 years in the NFL. So we're using 4 years of college to predict 4 years of pro. And then we also used a situational model in which drop percentage and pressure percentage, or the performance of receivers and the performance of the O-line and the opposing defense, were used to predict passer rating as well. So basically, the trouble with study 2 is that it's very difficult to completely separate the quarterback from the situation. And this problem definitely arises in a lot of studies on quarterback performance. It's how do you quantify impacts on quarterback success in which they have no say, in which their performance means nothing. So it's very difficult to do that. So we only had these two situational predictors. And then ultimately we found that all of these individual factors, we had about 27. This was their full college career statistics, their combine statistics, and their final year of college statistics. And the best predictors out of those only predicted 7%, or only explained 7% of the variance in NFL passer rating for the first 4 years of a quarterback's NFL career, whereas the situational influences predicted almost 19%. And here's where I should say that we're not in this study forecasting prospects or quarterback prospects for the NFL. We're just predicting performance because we were using college individual statistics or individual factors to predict NFL performance, but we were then using situational factors from their time in the NFL to predict that performance. So it's not about evaluating quarterback prospects. It's just more so about predicting success more generally. And from these results, the general recommendation is to just consider these environmental influences more when you're evaluating quarterbacks, whether that's when they're prospects in college or whether they're, you're deciding whether to keep them on your team or sign them as a free agent or trade for one. So just to wrap up this, we definitely had some clear limitations. So we did not survey expert talent evaluators. So this would be NFL scouts, GMs. And I will say that we are doing a follow-up study in which we are surveying these expert talent evaluators. So we're going to see if they also commit FAE. And then one of my biggest concerns with this study was actually the use of passer rating as the dependent variable. We understand all the problems with that metric. It's very outdated. It doesn't account for rushing and all that stuff. And we're going to be using more DVs in the future. It was pretty much just the fact that it was more available and for the sample that we were using, and that it's still the NFL's official passing performance metric. And we thought it would be a lot easier for a psychology audience to understand. And then from a psychology perspective, what was really great about this study is that it allowed us to study FAE in the real world, whereas, as I mentioned, the past studies have just been in the lab. So under these controlled lab environments, is there some sort of thing or aspect of that environment that has caused people to underestimate the impact of situational influences or not even think of these in the first place? We showed that maybe this effect is actually real in the real world. So thanks for listening. Hopefully you guys will come around and be able to ask questions during the conference. And I hope you enjoy the conference as a whole. It seems like a really, really great experience. So just thank you for listening.